Well, I started doing these things mostly so I can talk about the key event in world politics that is reshaping the the face of world politics as it happens, and that is the Russo-Ukrainian war.
Right.
And that will continue to be the primary focus of these updates, but I would like to include other stuff in there. In fact, like I've got my notes, like all throughout my notes, well, I have them divided up into Europe, Africa, Asia, and every single one of them includes something that's germane to the Russo-Ukrainian conflict. Like right now, Europe, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius confirms that Ukraine is now prepared to deploy missiles that were co-developed with Germany. And these were the ones we were talking about last week, which were like right after Friedrich Merz said that they were going to give Ukraine Taurus missiles. He was just like, oh, just kidding. I mean, we're going to give them money to develop their own missiles.
Oh, that's
yeah. And then like a few weeks later, they're already ready with their missiles that they were going to develop.
That's pretty cool that Ukraine's missile program, which is like 1 million times more sophisticated than anything which is possible.
Right. Well, so the capabilities of these missiles have been downgraded. Originally, it was they were supposed to have like a 500-kilometer range, which means they could reach from Moscow to Moscow from Ukrainian territory, but they've downgraded it to 300 kilometers, which means that I guess they're not as good as they thought they would be. Either that or the United States is still refusing to give the satellite data needed for Taurus missiles to. But yeah, so it appears as though this whole thing that we're going to talk about in more detail later, the attack by Ukraine on Russia's strategic bomber fleet, has really put the Americans off of cooperating with Ukraine, and we'll get into the why in a few minutes.
It's even more than just the romance between communist Vladimir Putin and the fascist Donald Trump.
Right,
It's
more than that even.
It's even more.
Oh yeah, they're gay together according to the liberals, and that's bad, except for when, in all other instances, except for when it's somebody you want to make fun of.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, they're also, Donald Trump is fat, which is also bad.
Yeah. It's bad to say that unless it's Donald Trump.
Right.
Right.
So now that's all out of the way.
The UK has pledged to increase its supply of drones to Ukraine from 10,000 to 100,000 in a new $350 million aid package, which, by the way, has everyone in the UK up in arms. Not everyone, but a lot of people in the UK are up in arms. Even Labour wants to get rid of Starmer because they think he's focused too much on foreign policy and not enough on domestic policy. And he's already angered everyone in the country by trying to cut benefits for the disabled and the elderly.
I mean, how much more focus on domestic policy do you need? He's already cut the benefits.
He's already done exactly what the Tories would have done.
Yeah, one day I would like to spend some time getting a handle on, like talking through how much British politics are even dumber and more upsetting than American politics.
Yeah, we should do that one day. In other European news, the EU secured a temporary delay in the imposition of 50% tariffs on imports to the United States following a phone call between European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and President Donald Trump. So really what we've learned from the tariff disputes is you can get your tariffs postponed, at least, just by giving Trump a call. I think that's what he just wants to feel important, I think.
It probably is helping, though. It probably he probably feels very important.
Oh yeah, he really probably does. Yeah, he destroyed the world economy, and he gets to fix it and feel good about it.
I also wonder how much the Los Angeles uprising, whatever, the riots and so on, how much that's making him not feel very important.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the 50th anniversary of the G7, uh, a useless organization that sucks, and it's been here for 50 years. So fuck it. I hope it collapses and quits being important. And the EU is moved to strengthen cybersecurity measures, which I don't understand why that's fucking news. Everyone is always strengthening cybersecurity measures. So that's something that's happening in the EU. Good for you, EU. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, is facing a no confidence vote.
Really? That's something I had no idea. I didn't know anything about that. What are the reasons?
It's essentially it's a no confidence vote based on the fact that his party lost so bad in the previous elections. So they would like to do what is generally done when the ruling party loses elections in a parliamentary democracy, and that is try to shuffle the power of parliament to more accurately reflect the voting on the ground. So anyway, they're trying to reflect the new political reality in Poland by throwing out the old and bringing in the new. So it's not huge news, but it does mean that a staunch ally of Ukraine is likely going to be given the boot, and someone who is not an ally of Ukraine, as the new political party that has gained power is against Ukraine joining NATO. They're still anti-Russian, but they're just not pro-Ukraine, because Poles are primarily anti-Russian.
Yeah, Poles are anti-Russian, and they're also anti-Ukrainian, or they're at least they have their designs on Ukraine are often less than friendly.
Right. In other European news, Spain cancels a contract with Israel for an anti-tank missile to be supplied to the Spanish military over the situation in Gaza. So good for Spain. Spain is one of the countries that pretty consistently does the right thing when it comes to relations with Israel for the past 20 years.
Right. Yeah, like unlike the UK and France, both of which have downgraded their plans to recognize Palestine. Now they are going to recognize a path to develop the conception for an eventual statehood.
Oh, that's a good note, because I don't have that in mind. So
they're getting ready to set down plans to prepare.
Oh, good. That's perfect EU jargon for not going to do anything.
Yeah, and that's what's needed, because before we had almost prepared without a plan for how to prepare. And so now...
Yeah, dude. Oh, well, who knows what could have happened if you began to prepare without a plan to prepare.
Yeah. There may have been a declaration of Palestinian statehood when there were still living Palestinians.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that. Speaking of the Middle East...
It sucks to make a joke like that, but what can you even say at this point? Besides the fact these people are monsters. You can't say that every week.
Yeah, well, we will. And these people are monsters.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are going to fund the Syrian government. They're going to subsidize their public sector wages for 3 months in order to stabilize the country. They've got the sanctions removed. They've got the two biggest funders of Salafist Islam in the world giving them money, and they successfully carried out an ethnic cleansing campaign with no repercussions from the West. They're sitting pretty right now.
That's really actually it's very significant.
I think so. Well, they're kind of sitting pretty because they are getting fired at by Israel. Israel did airstrikes into Syria as projectiles were fired from Syrian territory into Syrian territory that Israel occupies. And Israel is blaming al-Shara or al-Jalani for the attacks. So Israel is claiming that it's the Syrian government forces that are firing upon them, which is perfectly justified because they need to get the fuck out of Syrian territory. I hope that Al-Qaeda in Syria throws off its pro-Israel posturing and starts a war with Israel. I think that'd be great.
It would be at least more in line with the thing which we've all been told all of our lives that Al Qaeda is for.
Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of the demonic entity that is Israel, they apparently killed about 30 and wounded 90 Palestinians who were gathered at an aid distribution point in Rafah. They zeroed in on them with artillery fire, sniper fire, and quadcopter drones, killing, women and children, starving women and children. And Israel stated that the IDF engaged because it believed there were threats near the troops. So, I don't know, man. I don't think that there's anything that could happen to Israel that would be worse than they deserve at this point. And the Steve Witkoff has proposed a temporary ceasefire, but Hamas has rejected it and says that they are demanding a permanent ceasefire, full withdrawal, and sustained aid. Witkoff dismissed these as, quote, totally unacceptable and warned that they would, quote, set things back. Set things back to where they were before Israel broke the ceasefire the fucking first time.
Yeah, and didn't they even I want to say it's not the gray zone, it's Drop Site got a hold of and published the original deal that Hamas is seen as rejecting, which they fully accepted.
Right.
And then Israel rejected it instead.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Israel is basically anything Israel says, you can assume the exact opposite. Israel is very much like Nazi Germany in the sense that they lie constantly to the world and their own people and are carrying out a genocide. There has never been a better country to compare to Nazi Germany than Israel. And I think that most comparisons to Nazi Germany are absolutely, completely baseless and at best an enormous stretch. But Israel, I think you could pretty much consider them a pretty good analog for Nazi Germany. Previously, I would have said to apartheid South Africa, but the level of brutality and clear attempt to genocide the native population is much more insidious than the government of South Africa ever was.
Yeah.
Speaking of terrible things that make the world worse, the United States